topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
What's working on purpose anyway? Each week, we ponder the answer to this question. People ache for meaning and purpose at work, to contribute their talents passionately and know their lives really matter. They crave being part of an organization that inspires them and helps them grow into realizing their highest potential. Business can be such a force for good in the world, elevating humanity. In our program, we provide guidance and inspiration to help usher in this world we all want, working on purpose. Now, here's your host, Dr. Elise Cortez.
Welcome back to the Working on Purpose program, which has been brought to you with passion and pride since February of 2015. Thanks for tuning in this week. Great to have you. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. If we've not met before and you don't know me, I'm a workforce advisor, organizational psychologist, management consultant, logotherapist, speaker, and author. My team and I at Gusto Now help companies unleash their own gusto to enliven and fortify their operations by stoking the passion, meaning, and purpose of your team to align with your organizational aspirations. We do this by helping companies build a high-performance culture, inspirational leadership, and nurturing managers who meaningfully connect with their team members and coach them to develop more skills and contribute their highest performance and commitment. You can learn more about us and how we can work together at gusto-now.com and my personal site, elisecortez.com. Getting in today's program, we have with us Cecily Mak. She's a founding general partner at Wisdom Ventures, a purpose-driven investment fund backing companies at the intersection of technology and human flourishing, right up our alley. She's the voice behind the Clear Life Movement, the host of the Undimmed podcast, and the author of Undimmed, the 8 Awarenesses for Freedom from Unwanted Habits. We'll be talking about 8 powerful awarenesses from her book that support individuals in shifting unwanted habits, whether it's alcohol, overworking, perfectionism, or everyday digital distraction. She joined today from Mill Valley, California. Cecily, a hearty welcome to Working on Purpose.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
It is great to have you on. And as I mentioned, I learned about you from the Purpose Reset authors. So that's where I got you from. And let's go ahead and celebrate this new thing that's about to come into the world. And I'm reading a little bit early, Undimmed. Here it is.
Awesome.
It's gorgeous.
It's great to see it live in the wild. Thank you for being one of my earliest readers.
I'm so honored. I'm so honored. And as I said to you before we got on air, Cecily, I just think the writing is beautiful. Your storytelling is beautiful. The way you bring us really into your world in a very upfront and personal way is really compelling and very commendable.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So as you probably know from what we said before in our exchanges, and maybe even by looking at anything I do, websites or LinkedIn, you know that I stand for helping individuals and organizations realize their highest potential and step into their shine. So it occurs to me that your book is about living life full court, drinking in all its wonder. And so if you could share with us, why were you so compelled to write it?
Yeah, I have one of those rare stories where I actually didn't set out to be an author. I had a vibrant career.
It was on accident.
Yeah, it was a little bit of an accident. Of course, there's certain moments where you have to really commit and follow through with the intention because it is an enormous amount of primarily solitary work to birth a book into the world. But I really used writing as a way for me to metabolize and process and learn around my own experiences of an unexpected decision to pause alcohol in my life. And when I made that break, and I realized how little community and resources available for people who weren't necessarily in the recovery, committing to sobriety camp, but also wanted to maybe reframe their relationship with alcohol or any other dimmer, as I refer to them. I realized that, I had some work to do in this space. And in processing my own experience and understanding my journey, I wrote about it. And first it was essays, and then I worked with an editor, and then I worked with a second editor. And over time, I really kind of defined my approach and way of relating to things that take me away from presence. And as I came to bring that book into the world, we actually ended up shopping what was my second planned book, not the first, which is this framework of the 8 awarenesses. And it really hit a chord. We had incredible response when my agent and I took it out to the big publishers, and we knew that there was something here that could be helpful to other people. And my own process of learning could actually be supportive of other folks as well.
A couple of things, Cecily. So first, I love that idea of metabolizing your experience into a learning journey. I just think that's really, really yummy as a lifelong learner. And then secondly, I really want to commend you for what a compelling way you opened your book. You open your book with a story about choosing to step back into the house really quick and take a shot of vodka to get you through the day.
Yeah.
And that's compelling for a number of reasons. First, that it helps us all smack ourselves into a state of awareness of what are we doing that might also be dimming ourselves.
Yeah.
But I think it's just really powerful the way that you talk about this idea of what brought you into this learning journey to step you onto this path.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And thank you for mentioning that. It was a tough moment in life. It was a tough moment to write about. And it was also a tough moment to agree to reveal to the world. I'm still professional. I run a venture fund. I run in very kind of polished circles, and that is a very raw and uncomfortable and awkward story. But I wanted to serve that interest and intrigue in people who are trying to find a way to relate to what I'm talking about here. And in being my most human self possible, in inviting a reader to spend time on this and their own precious minutes learning about what I'm offering in the book Undimmed, it felt really appropriate. And, that hook also leads into some of the other offerings within the book, which are really an invitation for all of us to look at what are we doing to survive difficulty? What are we reaching for to soften the tough edges of life? And that moment for me, I was sitting, for the readers who aren't, or listeners who aren't familiar with the story, I was sitting in the passenger seat of our family car at 10 in the morning on a weekend day with my then husband in the driver's seat, engine running, kids strapped in the back, ready to go to the beach. And I was so wickedly uncomfortable in my own skin and in my marriage and in my career and in my body. Everything was just awkward and wrong feeling, but I felt like I just had to keep going. That unconsciously walking back into the house, taking a shot of vodka, and then walking back into the car made me feel at that moment like I could then do what I needed to keep doing. And not doing that, in allowing ourselves to feel discomfort and work through what arises in those moments, is actually some of the best intelligence that we can call on to make shifts in our lives. And so it was an eye-opening moment in retrospect, for sure.
Well, and also there's a couple of things that I would say about your braveness and your courage to do that, that to show that kind of vulnerability, and it is absolutely leadership. Is you are so much more credible as the author of that book by sharing that. Right. It's not like you're talking about this from an academic vantage point. Oh, you've researched this, you know what this is because you have the latest and greatest on it. No. You were on literally the front seat.
Yes.
So I think I just really want to commend you on that. It's really powerful.
Thank you, Lise. Appreciate that.
So welcome. So let's help our listeners and viewers who haven't yet read the book as I have really better understand what you mean by a dimmer. So alcohol is one of them. What do you mean by a dimmer?
Yeah, it's really anything that we do or consume or use in some way to soften difficulty. And there are unhealthy dimmers and there are healthy dimmers, and we all have our own personal experience and story with these. There's no one right answer to that. Unhealthy dimmers tend to be in the drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex addiction category, where the use has gotten to a place where there's a problem. We're not engaging with life in a very healthy way because of our tendencies with these escapist tools or things that we can take into our systems. And then there are really healthy dimmers that can be used in unhealthy ways. Work, food, exercise. I actually name one as a personal experience when I'm working through now, toxic generosity. So it's something that we do in an unhealthy way, meaning we're reaching for it to escape or dim out. Social media is another great example. How many of us are awkwardly standing in the elevator with strangers, or receive an uncomfortable bit of news, or have an awkward conversation with a family member, and we grab our phone and we start scrolling through whatever's available for that quick little dopamine hit that will relieve us for a moment of that difficulty. Those are all dimmers. And when I was doing my own work and my own discovery journey around how I was using alcohol, I realized it wasn't the alcohol, actually. It was, I was reaching for something that made difficult moments more tolerable for me.
Yeah.
And when I got beneath the layering of that and could actually encounter those difficulties and use them as guidance, my life completely changed for the better. So that's the invitation of this work.
And I want to celebrate that because I want to get a little bit more deeper into that. But you brought up something for me, Cecily, and that is that idea of, those awkward moments in the elevator or whatever, when you kind of reach for your digital diversion or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Some of my most delightful moments have happened as I'm walking through the parking lot of my gym to the elevator to get to the 7th floor up to the gym. And just this week, I had one of those occasions where this young man was walking along, and you could always do that really quiet heads down thing, and you get in the elevator and get on your phone kind of thing. But I chose to say something about this mat thing that he was carrying, and it opened this amazing conversation that within just a few seconds, I won't go into the story because we want to have more time, but literally within, well, not seconds, a couple of minutes, literally, he had shared something profound about his life. And I got moved to tears by how beautiful it was. And I said, "Can I hug you?" And he said, "Yes." Now, if I would have just stayed with, the usual thing, I would have missed that whole opportunity. Man's name is David. I made sure to say goodbye before I left that day. So what I see in your book, which is in beautiful alignment with what I'm trying to do with my life and my work, is you're asking us to become more aware of our dimmers and to be courageous in pursuing the life that we really want. That's what I get out of your book.
Yes. It's two things. It's getting enough signal to have enough information to make changes that we might need to make. A great example that I think about a lot is there's certain people and contexts that we don't feel like we can handle unless we have a thing. So certain people we might be invited to go to a dinner party with, and we think, I'm just not going to make it through the dinner party without a couple drinks. Well, maybe that's signal from our system around maybe spending less time with those people. Or I'm not going to be able to survive another, 2 days at this job without my nightly wine habit. Maybe we should just investigate.
Yeah.
What is it about this work that's so much of our time and energy and life force that is so counter to our own state of ease or sense of creativity or impact that we want in the world, that maybe we should take a look at that. The second one, which is such a gift, and it was the word that just kept bouncing around in my life for that first year I wasn't drinking anymore, is presence.
Yeah.
And that's what you just spoke to. You're actually there for it. You're in the moment with the person, as opposed to checked out. And that is really the currency of life, is being able to be in presence with somebody. It's the greatest gift we can give a loved one. It's the best way to feel fulfilled in our day-to-day activities, is to fully show up for those moments, make the eye contact, invite the hug, let the tears come out of your eyes. You remember that now, however many days later, and you might months down the road, where you would never if you'd spent 90 seconds scrolling Instagram on your way up to the 7th floor. And so it's kind of a gateway to that different way of orienting to the world, which just is the best.
I'm in. And yeah, the presence thing is really a beautiful thing. Also being attuned is another part of it, right? So the attunement piece. What I want to do next is, and this is for listeners and viewers, for you to both get a feel for how beautiful Cecily's writing is, but two, this passage here is just so powerful. So I'm going to read this, Cecily.
Yeah.
So you say, as my process unfolded, it became increasingly clear that my journey had little to do with alcohol after all. The root of my habits was an effort to dim out the difficulty and pain beneath the surface. Like many, I had been self-soothing, evading discomfort, softening life's edges with what was not only available, but socially and culturally encouraged. As I shed my dimming habits, I felt everything intensely again, like a child almost, the difficult and the beautiful parts. It was as if my life aperture had widened, allowing in more of the extremes of a spectrum of feelings. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't bad either. It even began to feel good. Dimming keeps us in a safe middle. I was starting to feel clear with a newfound access to extremes that I now can embrace as part of what makes being a human such a gift. The key to freedom was getting to the bottom of what I'd been trying to avoid and making peace with that. Only then could I start to live from a place of true agency and alignment and finally reacquaint myself with both ends of the life experience spectrum again.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
It's so beautiful. And I mean, that is so much the invitation and promise of your book.
Thank you. Yeah. It's such a visceral experience too. And I really do see a pendulum when I think about this and the experience. We can stay in the safe middle. We can stay in the safe middle for our whole lives. And when we open up our access to the deeper ends of the spectrum, it can be sadness and difficulty and challenge, but it can also be abundant joy and experience and elation. And I speak with people every week who are discovering the incredible impact of being able to expand outside of that safe middle. And it is both ways, but most of us end up choosing that as a path.
Well, it's really beautiful, and I can't wait for it to get into more hands and eyeballs of readers like me. Let's grab our first break and let our listeners and viewers marinate on what we've been talking about so far. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We've been on air with Cecily Mak. She's a founding general partner at Wisdom Ventures, a purpose-driven investment fund backing companies at the intersection of technology and human flourishing. She's the voice behind the Clear Life movement and the host of the Undimmed podcast. We've been talking about where this book came from and why its message is critical for you in today's times. After the break, we're going to start diving into the 8 awarenesses from her book. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, as I am dedicated to helping create a world where organizations thrive because their people thrive. They're led by inspirational leaders that help them find and contribute their greatness, and we do business that betters the world. I keep researching and writing my own books. So one of my latest came out. It's called The Great Revitalization, How Activating Meaning and Purpose Can Radically Enliven Your Business. And I wrote it to help leaders understand what today's discerning and diverse workforce wants. What do they want from you to give their best and stay? And then I offered 22 best practices to equip you to provide that through your leadership and your culture. You can find my books on Amazon or my personal site, elisecortez.com. If you are just now joining us, my guest is Cecily Mak. She's the author of Undimmed, the 8 awarenesses for freedom and unwanted habits, from unwanted habits. So I think it's fascinating that you adapted your system of 8 awarenesses from the 12-step process. So let's talk a little bit about where that came from and how it was that you decided to start there.
Yeah, thank you. So I, as I mentioned earlier, I took a 30-day experimental break from alcohol in 2017, and that extended to 60 days, 90 days, and then a year. And in that year, 2018, I was grappling with all the things one might grapple with. Who are my people? What do I do socially? Do I still hang out in environments that are alcohol saturated? What about the work colleague meal that depends on a few glasses of wine? How do I handle that? And so in addition to doing my own inner work along the way, I was seeking out resource and community and guidance and tips on how to do this well. And multiple people recommended that I go to an AA meeting or more. And I was happy to, and I went to a number, and I had been in the AA system previously as a child of an adult alcoholic. So I was familiar with Al-Anon and the process, and I just couldn't embrace it as the path for me. And No judgment. I know that AA has helped millions of people and will help many millions more. But again, I didn't self-identify as an addict, and I didn't even self-identify as sober. So a lot of just the initial framework didn't fit for me. And I kept thinking to myself, I wish some of the similarities here, with my experience could be adapted into something that suited me better. And I talked to other people, in a similar place. They agreed. So I literally took the 12 steps of AA. I copied it off of the website. I pasted it into a Word document and I started editing. And I changed the language over 4 years to suit my experience and my needs. And at the end of it, we have the 8 awarenesses. The biggest difference between them and the 12 steps of AA are that the 8 awarenesses is much more about agency, freedom, and choice. Whereas I found the AA model was a bit more about surrender, diagnosis, and in many cases, stigma. So that's how the 8 awarenesses came to be.
Beautiful, beautiful explanation and way to set up. So I don't know how many all we can get through this, but we'll do our best to get through most of the 8. And what I would love to do, Cecily, is just cue up a little bit about the awareness so people are aware of just what's available to you in the book, because the book has, ladies and gentlemen, so much more levels of richness to be able to understand and get into the awareness. Yeah. But let's start with the first one. It's called, you call it, My Life is Better Clear.
Yes. And this one is really about the invitation or the provocation for us all to decide whether or not we are better off without this dimmer. I spent years trying to convince my late mother to pause and change her drinking habits, and she never really wanted to. And so all of those efforts were somewhat maddening and fruitless for us. I found that in order to be on this path of opting out of alcohol and staying committed to a dimmer-free life, that initial decision has to come from me. I have to believe my life is actually better clear.
Yeah.
So it's a reminder to come back to that anchor.
I thought that it was interesting that you say the best way to explore this first awareness is to pause a dimmer of choice for a period and pay close attention.
Yeah.
See how you might be better off without it.
Yes.
I thought that was really powerful.
Yes. And I want to invite people to realize it could really be anything. It could be removing your social media apps from your phone for a week and noticing what shifts. It could be deciding that you're not going to buy anything on Amazon all next month. It could be opting out of whatever maybe something you're ingesting, sugar, alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and just pay attention. You don't have to have a bunch of, decision or judgment around it, but just with a lot of open-heartedness and self-grace, observe if the impact of that absence is positive or negative, what you miss and what you gain.
I noticed, thanks to reading your book, on Sunday, I had a day of really great productivity, and I liked the idea of just organizing for the week. I've been on the road quite a bit, and things had gotten kind of messy and such, and I didn't know where my inbox bottom was or anything was. And I went through this big, huge period, and I did all that. And then I realized I still had like several hours left in my day or evening. Yeah. And I felt this immediate compulsion to do something with them. What do I do with that time? Like normally I would already have been through it. And because of your book, I stopped and I went, hang on a minute. Why am I being compelled to do something with this time? What am I trying to fill it with? So thank you, Cecily. It's already starting to seep into my being. So thank you.
I love that.
Yes.
Busyness is a big one. That's one I'm still battling with. And anyone who reads my Substack will see that it's one that pops up regularly. I do the same thing that you just described. Open time, negative space, my reflex is to fill it. Yep. And there's a beautiful invitation there to wonder why. And what happens if we do less doing and more being, and what might emerge in that space.
Well, and that's what I went into. I went into that inquiry thanks to you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so the second awareness is I choose what I consume.
Oh, this is perhaps the most empowering of them. And I like to think of the awarenesses as kind of mini mantras we can put in our pocket and pull out when we need them. This awareness around choice, I choose what I consume, really applies broadly and can define our experience of life if we use it well. So my insight around this originally came from realizing that if I was going to drink, there were many steps between thought and consumption. And I write about this in great detail in the book. You have to get somewhere where there is alcohol. You have to usually procure it in some way. Then there's a pouring and a lifting and a sipping, and 10 or other steps in between there. And when I realized how much choice I had every step of that way, it made me feel very empowered to make choices that were aligned with my previous decisions instead of feeling like a surrender or a victim orientation. And then once I kind of passed the alcohol hurdle, and I keep alcohol in my house. We offer alcohol to guests. I choose to not drink every day. I'm conscious of that choice. I realized there were other areas of life where that same awareness can apply. For example, what people do we spend time with? What do we read or listen to or watch? This awareness, I choose what I consume, applies to so many areas of our lives. And if we can just reclaim a bit of our own agency and decision making and notice that it's actually most of the time up to us, what we let into our systems, we can really change the nature of how we live for the better, whether that's physical health, mental health, our social lives, our professional endeavors. And for a lot of us reaching mid-age, in some ways that's learning how to say no, thank you. We don't have to say yes to every single opportunity and thing and invitation. We're bringing all of this into our systems and our calendars. So let's choose carefully what we actually want to say yes to or not.
Yes, I think your question of, as we're making that choice, that we ask ourselves, will this numb me or nourish me, is really powerful.
That's a big one. Yeah. And it's a question we can ask about just about anything when we're posed with an invitation.
Absolutely. I can think of, friendships that I've let go because they were no longer nourishing.
Yeah.
And so that would being an example of what you mentioned in the social front.
And that's hard to do. Congratulations. I know that is not an easy thing to navigate.
Exactly.
And, not everyone likes it.
Yeah. No, it was a big deal for everybody. So yes, but it was time.
Yeah.
Okay. So then speaking of that, maybe this will relate to this third awareness that you have. My intuition defines my priorities.
Yeah.
Is that right? Intuition. Is that right?
Yes. No, this is right. This is a juicy one. One of the things that happens when we remove a dimmer of any sort is that we increase our access to our inner guidance, our intuition. And often people find when they remove a dimmer, they realize they've actually been dimming to tune out their intuitive guidance. Your intuition might be telling you it's time to get out of this relationship. It's time to move out of this home. It's time to shift my career in this way that is going to be awkward and risky. And so we dim to just not hear that voice because it's naggy and it's annoying and it's encouraging us to do something that might be really awkward and uncomfortable or costly in various ways. And so the intuition awareness is really around, let's see what we can do to actually increase our access to that voice. Let's learn to trust our intuition as really important guidance. And then in turn, rely on it to help us shape how we actually want to spend our time and our life.
That is juicy, very juicy. And I couldn't help notice that you talk about your bout with breast cancer in that chapter on that particular awareness, that intuition defines your priorities.
Yeah.
I have known many people now who have had that journey, and I know that you're championing people who are also now going through that journey as well. So just, I don't know what you would like to share about that, but I wanted to call out and celebrate your journey.
Thank you. I mean, the reason it arises in the chapter and why it's something I continue to reflect on and leverage is that I had a really strong sense that it was time for me to step away from my last very intense COO role.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of people who I really trust and appreciate, who I have gone to for advice before successfully, try to talk me out of it. And I stayed the course, and it took me 9 months to get out of that job, but I eventually resigned and left the house in order and great new team members and so on. And it was 6 days after that final email to the team that I received my breast cancer diagnosis. And it's almost as if my intuitive guidance was step away from this load of stress and responsibility and accountability so that you have the space to treat and heal. And it felt so validating to me when I did find out I did actually very much so need that time and space to treat and rest and heal. So I think about that often as a reminder, particularly to women. If you're having a gut feeling about something that you need to shift in your life, it's really important to listen to that. It's often right, and in my case, it was life impacting.
Wow, that is so powerful. May lead us, or at least help inform the fourth awareness, which is my trauma isn't my identity.
Yeah. So this one is really about the unearthing that inevitably happens when we pause a dimmer. We hear about this a lot in addiction and recovery communities, where it's easy to stop doing the addictive thing. Then the work starts, because you have to actually start dealing with and facing what it was you were trying to run away from with that habit or tendency or later addiction. And I found in my own experience in working with people in the community around the world that's connected with me on this topic, that one of the kind of traps that you can fall into in that process is over identifying with the difficulty that you weathered for all of those years, and wearing a bit too much of a victim hat in weathering or kind of defining your identity as you survived it. So, for example, and this is very awkward to admit, but it was as recent as less than 2 years ago, I realized I had in my professional bio, daughter of a deceased alcoholic. And I felt quite a bit of shame around that once I noticed it, because I was doing exactly the opposite of what the invitation of the fourth awareness is. I was attaching this identity to myself in a way that kind of nurtured righteousness and ego, as opposed to just seeing that experience as something that informed my life. You know, it's a delicate thing. Similarly, it goes with breast cancer. I'm often referred to as a breast cancer survivor, and I politely invite people to maybe say, I treated breast cancer successfully, not I am a breast cancer survivor, because I don't want it to be an identity piece.
Yeah.
One of the learnings of writing this book is also having a fair amount of understanding and appreciation for everybody being on their own path on this. And there are exceptions to this. There are people who have suffered really severe abuse at a meta or a singular scale. And it's important for people to have connection with community that shares in that suffering. That's a really kind of an emergent, important topic of discussion in the States. In fact, we're seeing it in the government today. There are groups of people who are really supported by a collective identity. So I don't want to discount that entirely, but as far as one's own relationship with a dimmer and how to kind of maneuver and shift that, the awareness is around understand what it is, have self-compassion and grace for why you were dimming for the time that you were, and then try to move forward.
So powerful, Cecily. So happy that we've crossed paths and I've got to read your book and be informed by it and get to share with my listeners now. Let's grab our last break. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We've been on air with Cecily Mak. She's a founding general partner at Wisdom Ventures, which is a purpose-driven investment fund backing companies that are at the intersection of technology and human flourishing. She's the voice behind the Clear Life movement and the host of the Undimmed podcast. We've been talking about 4 of her awarenesses. After the break, we're going to see if we can cover off on the last 4. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. As you know by now, this program is dedicated to empowering and inspiring you along your journey to realize more of your potential. If you want to learn more about how we can work together and learn about the Gusto Now Academy for leaders and individuals on various journeys alike, make your way to gusto-now.com and then go to the Learning tab and you can find the Academy there. We'd love to have you join us. If you are just joining the podcast today, my guest is Cecily Mak. She's the author of Undimmed, the 8 Awarenesses for Freedom from Unwanted Habits. So moving on here through the list, the 5th awareness is forgiveness and letting go are the path to liberation. That one is definitely one that I could stand to use some work on.
Couldn't we all? I mean, it's actually the biggest, emergent awareness of my whole entire process. I carried a lot of baggage and weight and bitterness and crankiness with 2 particular people in my life for many years. And as I made my way through this process and became a little bit more clear and present with myself and faced some of my own demons, I was able to put some of that down. And I think it was following those important steps of being clear about agency and choice and tuning into my intuition and shedding a bit of that victim orientation I had. The 2 people were my mother, who I felt like really abandoned me and kind of lost herself in her own difficult journey. And then also my kid's dad. We had a difficult divorce years ago. And I mean, we could do a whole episode on this topic, but I'll just say there's something very empowering and liberating about literally choosing to put some of this down. And the one sentence I can leave people with is, can we assume that everyone is doing their best? And when we realize that most of the time people are not trying to hurt or disappoint us, it unclenches the hand a bit, so to speak. So that's really what that one's about.
That's powerful. A very, very powerful way to describe that, to unclench the hand a bit. That's got you by the throat, basically. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the 6th awareness really, really spoke to me for a number of reasons, Cecily. In part because I think it's important as we do this work, that we don't become self-righteous thinking that we've got all the answers. But 2, I just think in our world at large, this next one is really, really powerful. So the 6th awareness is, I do not judge or impose my orientations upon others.
Yeah. This one is an important one for anyone on this path. It's going to be different for everybody and in very different contexts and settings. And we will all notice it in one way, shape, or form, whether we're self-platforming or being condescending or positioning others as other to make ourselves feel safe or good.
Yep.
In my experience in pausing alcohol, I was extremely guilty for a while of being very judgmental of people in my life who were, I used to say, still drinking. Hear the assumption right there?
Yeah.
The judgment is that they will stop someday and they'll join me in my path and my journey. I have, with great awkwardness, come to realize that's actually none of my business. And what people do and what they choose and how they live their lives might be great for them. My path, my awareness is, I know what works for me and I can follow that. And I'm still learning. I'm making mistakes all the time, but it's not my role to sit somewhere and impose my judgment and expectations on others.
Yes. And I thought it was so powerful what you shared with your interaction with someone named Trey in the book. And I want to situate this as not just, for your own dimmer, but for any of our dimmers and how we choose to pause them. But you write in your book, he says to you, your choice to not drink is like a meditation bell. It makes others around you pause, reflect for a moment, and on their own habits. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
And what I got from that is, since we all have dimmers and we all choose to take a pause on those dimmers, we too can be that meditation bell. And I think that I thought was really powerful.
Yes. I think our daily actions, our choices, how we behave, what we do, what we don't do, it might not be the most important thing in the room, but people do notice. And sometimes that results in curiosity or a shift or a pause, which can be transformative for people. I think about that a lot as a mother. I have 2 teenage sons, and the way they see me interact with the guy at the ticket taker in the parking lot who can't find the right thing to help me close my transaction is going to have a ripple effect on them, right? So maybe my own way of behaving in that moment can have us all just take a pause and take a breath and be something we don't want to see in the world ourselves.
Definitely. And I thought that in this particular chapter on this dimmer that this insight here was really, really powerful. You say that great judgment serves as a guide. And when we catch ourselves comparing or feeling better than someone else, it is an opportunity to notice an unhealed part of ourselves.
Yeah.
Really powerful.
We only see the ickiness in other people that we know exists within us. And so it's always an invitation to say, wow, that feature, that quality, that person that's driving me nuts, it must exist in me. I would not have such intense emotion around it. And that, talk about humbling and awkward. That's one of my favorites.
Yes. Whew, this thing being human is rough, isn't it? Sometimes it's beautiful, but it's also so right. There's so much to learn, and we're never done learning. And and to be open to that and humbled by it, I think is really beautiful, and the opportunity. So I have become so aware of this as the decades continue to unfold. Your seventh awareness is time is our most precious currency.
Yeah, this one hits home, and it's an emotional one in some ways too, especially having had a cancer experience in recent years. I came to this one because after I had been not drinking for a year, I realized I had all this time.
Yeah, you talk about how much time you were spending on that dimmer, and I went,
it's crazy. I didn't really think about it, but there's an hour or two having a drink or two, and then there's that hour or two you're not doing anything else other than maybe watching something, or I don't know what you're doing. And then the next day isn't really all engines firing until an hour or two after waking up. And I did the math. It's about 3 hours every 24-hour cycle if you've got a light casual drinking habit, which adds up to over 1,000 hours a year. And I realized, like, yeah, actually I do have more time. And I'll put as a footnote there, and more money. It's another kind of unexpected side effect of pausing a lot of dimmers. But I think, going back to the third awareness, which is linked to this one in some ways around intuition, it's really wonderful to arrive in a place where we realize we can be a little bit more intentional with our time and really be thoughtful about how we want to spend it and with whom or not. And I think, our phone use is another great example here. Social media can eat our lives. I have all this wonderful data that I share with my kids now around, what does 4 hours on your phone translate to over 10 years? What did you miss out on? How do we kind of reframe our respect relationship with this most precious resource we have? We have no idea how much we have left. We cannot buy or swindle anymore, no matter what. And it's this kind of opportunity to have reverence for something that we all have. And it's really up to us and how we want to use it and spend it, particularly discretionary time. We all have to work and take care of ourselves and each other and all that, but it's the discretionary time that I really try to myself be more thoughtful around how I spend it, and encourage that in my family as well.
Yes, so much opportunity there. So the last one I really thought was beautiful in how you situated it, and you do situate it as ripples of grace. The eighth awareness is I seek ways to support others.
Yeah. I mean, this one was one that required the least translation out of the 12 steps. This is a really natural final stepping stone on a journey like this before maybe you start the cycle again. What can we do to support other human beings figuring it out, especially when we are in a place of, I use the word abundance. That could be abundance of time. It could be abundance of money. It could be abundance of talent. How do we, put back into the system what we have benefited from? And anyone who's on a clear life journey or, navigating with the 8 awarenesses, there are tough parts and we need help and we ask for support along the way. Yeah. And that is part of the, kind of core of this experience is, it's an inner journey, but we also can't do these difficult things alone either. How do we pay that forward a little bit? How can we show up for somebody, even in just a small way? For me, it's often coffee with somebody, a mom in my community who says, hey, I just hit perimenopause and this white wine thing isn't working for me anymore. I know you don't drink. Can we talk? Yes, I would love to spend an hour with you. Let's go sit down on a park bench somewhere and compare notes. I mean, I think that those are just wonderful gestures. And it's easy in our lives today to get siloed into our me orientation and all the things we have to do. And it's just it's a reminder to try to offer up a little bit of what we've been so fortunate to bring into our own lives.
What I love about that is that it really aligns with my work and what's called logotherapy. Logos is Greek for meaning, so it's really about vitalizing through meaning. Is that it really speaks to that we are at our best when we are serving and helping others. Yeah. That is when we are our most vivacious and vital.
Yeah. And look what you're doing. This is amazing that you're doing it. It's awesome. I love being a witness to your work.
Well, thank you. Well, and that brings me to my next question, really. You were talking about, being in service to others, but here it is. You've written a book to help us live our bigger, better, best life, which we can immediately benefit from. But if I didn't help situate that part of what you're also doing is to be able to bring forth and continue to nurture your own mission, you're about raising awareness about and taking a stand against alcohol, that it is a carcinogen. And so if you could share a bit, and we've been talking about there's lots of dimmers that we all can opt into and use, but this particular one has become something really important for you.
Yeah. And just a gentle clarification, I wouldn't say I'm against alcohol per se. What I am for is informed consent with regard to alcohol. We are in the United States in particular subject to a lot of lack of or misinformation about the risks associated with alcohol because the big alcohol industry in its behemoth and very predictable ways is actually keeping science and research and helpful warning information out of the public sphere for their own commercial self-interests. This infuriates me. I had been alcohol-free for 5 years when I had my breast cancer diagnosis, and it was only in researching what may have contributed to my cancer that I unearthed that alcohol is a group 1 carcinogen alongside tobacco and asbestos. At that point, 2 years ago, less than half of Americans knew that. The percentage is gradually increasing, in large part thank you to Dr. Vivek Murthy's U.S. Surgeon General's report on the topic in January of 25. But we have a long way to go. And in my work with the United States Alcohol Policy Alliance, which is a Washington, D.C. based nonprofit, really working to help increase awareness and understanding around the risks and make alcohol less of a harmful feature of our culture, I see a lot of room for us to improve in this space. So I thank you for bringing it up. I do invite people to be informed, do the research, be one of informed consent when you put things into your body.
Yeah, back on the choice of consumption. I choose what to consume.
Yeah.
So it goes by so fast, Cecily. This has been amazing. Regarding your 8 awarenesses and stepping into this fuller experience of life and expression of life, what would you like to leave listeners with today?
Such a good question. I think the one that I come back to a lot in my community and myself is listen to yourself. We all know when there's something that needs to shift or change or evolve. And it's really easy to find a way to kind of dim out that guidance. And I just encourage us all to tune in, trust ourselves. We actually know what changes or evolutions we want to make. And that guidance is really, really valuable wisdom that can help us kind of get our life back onto an orientation that feels better.
I want to echo that, Cecily. There is just so much information, data, wisdom available when we learn how to really tap into it. And I love that your message is for us, if we remove those dimmers, we have much greater access to all of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Very grateful that when I reached out to you on LinkedIn saying, hey, I've got this podcast, I want you to come on and talk about your book, that you didn't just ignore it, but you responded with a yes. Cecily, thank you so much for writing your beautiful book, sharing it with the world. I get to be one of the first readers and coming and working on purpose to talk about it. It's been an honor to have you on.
Oh, the honor is mine. And I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing and the impact you're having. And thank you for inviting me. Thank you for sending the note. Maybe I'll just reach out to people we want to connect with a little bit more.
Absolutely. Delighted. Yes. Anybody that you think I should talk to, and likewise, well, I'll say that I want to talk, that you think I should talk to, just send them my way, make the introduction. I'm in. I trust your judgment and your intuition.
Awesome. Will do.
Listeners and viewers, you are going to want to learn more about Cecily Mak, the work she does at Wisdom Ventures, and her new book, Undimmable. You can start by visiting her website. It's cecilymak.com. And let me spell that for you. It's CECILYMAK, cecilymak.com. Next week, we'll be on the air with Lamel McMorris talking about his new book, The Power to Persist, 8 Simple Habits to Build Lifelong Resilience. See you then, and together, let's lean in and learn how to create destination workplaces where people thrive, grow into their higher potential, all while doing business that betters the world. Let's work on purpose.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's program. Be sure to tune into Working on Purpose, featuring your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, each week on W4CY. Together, we'll create a world where business operates conscientiously, leadership inspires impassioned performance, and employees are fulfilled in work that provides the meaning and purpose they crave. See you there. Let's work on purpose.